Hey class, it's Mr. Andrews. So today you are going to be working on completing a first draft of your IRB form. And yes, I use the word completing. This is not for a grade so much as for your individual feedback that you're going to receive. This is our last chance, our last opportunity for me to give you direct constructive feedback on your materials before you are submitting it away to the IRB committee, which is made up of administrators, department chairs, staff members here at Carmel High School, and they are tasked with the job of making sure that your research that you conduct is going to be safe for you, yourself, for others, and in the case of you who aren't working with human beings, just in terms of you having the rights and privileges to the information that you're going to be researching, or proving that your research poses no risks at all. So all in all, this is the last chance really where you're going to get feedback, direct constructive feedback from me as an instructor as well, because after the IRB is submitted, it's not only out of my hands in terms of what goes to the committee, it's also the last chance where I'm going to be giving you direct constructive feedback for the rest of the year on your research. After that, you are on your own doing the research. Now, as an advisor and as an instructor, I can ask questions and we can have conversations. And I will hopefully help to facilitate and provide class feedback. But as far as individual feedback on your own research, this is the last chance, the last opportunity. You really want to take advantage of that for these conferences, okay? So the goal here is to complete a full draft of your IRB form and the materials. So what are the materials? You may recall at the top of the IRB form, there was a list of materials that you want to include as links, right? You want to include as many of those as are applicable to you. So for instance, you may have noticed that it includes things like materials. So if you are, if you're doing content analysis, this would include tables where you plan on putting all of the materials that you're gathering, all the data that you're gathering. If you're doing surveys or interviews, this should be where you're planning to store the information that you're gathering from your subjects. If you are doing surveys or interviews, you're also going to be expected to include any questions that you're asking. If you're conducting an experiment or a content analysis, you're expected in this section to include an outline of your procedures. How are you going to go about it? What is a step-by-step process going to look like? You're also expected to include consent forms. So if this applies to you, if you need to get consent from either minors or adults or both, you need to make sure that you've included those linked in as well. Now, if you're freaking out and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have all that material done, get as much as you can done for me, okay? Because you want to have as much material into me as possible so that you can get as much feedback from me as possible when we conference. And yes, we are going to conference just one last time before the final IRBs are due. So when are the final IRBs due? When are these going off to the committee or going to, for many of you, to a single individual IRB member? If you're in exempt status, that is if you're working with non-human subjects or you're working with humans, but it's in a lower risk category. If you're working with an exempt form, that is just going to go to a single IRB committee member who's just going to review it and give me feedback so I can give it directly to you. If you're an expedited, that means you're dealing with human subjects and you're dealing with perhaps a potentially riskier topic. If you're an expedited, that's going to go to a full committee review, okay? It won't necessarily take longer. It's just going to have more eyes looking at it, okay? And so this is the last chance to talk about it before it goes there. That said, conference sign up, you want to make sure that you're going to today's agenda and look and clicking at the conference sign up, okay? If you are in my in-person class, your sign up sheet's going to look a little different than this. But if you're in my virtual class, this is what your sign up sheet looks like, okay? You can sign up on any of these times before noon on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Those 2 days are going to be dedicated fully to taking some time, at least 10 minutes with each of you to talk about your IPF, or I'm sorry, your IRB, to talk about what you're working on in it, to look over some of the materials, and hopefully we'll get you set up in terms of what you're missing, where you need to maybe elaborate or be a little more concrete. we can talk about what areas of concern exist for you when it comes to the IRB. Again, try to be as detailed as possible, knowing full well that you can't predict the future with 100% accuracy. You still want to be as specific as you can, and you want to have put in a great deal of work into what materials you do submit. That said, make sure that you sign up for it. Make sure that you submit those materials so we can go over them. The next class that we have while I'm conferencing, I am going to continue to have workshops for you guys regarding the revision of questions and things like that. Do make sure that if you didn't look at it yesterday, that you go back to yesterday's agenda and look at those workshops, those breakout workshops regarding different methodologies. For instance, if you're working on interviews or surveys, you should really be going back to those slides and especially paying attention to the questions that I posed and the suggestions I posed in the last couple slides about revising your questions. Look back at the questions you're asking so far. What have you drafted out in terms of a survey? And revisiting that. Another great strategy for survey questions and interview questions, for those of you who are working with that, is to consider actually just having a test run survey, not with the population you're planning to study, but maybe just sending it out to like some relatives or a friend that you have at a different school if you're planning on surveying here, right? And just seeing if the questions themselves are fairly clear, or if you find that the test subject is getting really confused by it. You could also try this with a couple classmates if you're not planning on doing any research of them as well. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. That said, I'm really excited to see what you guys have been putting together with your IRBs. I'm interested to see where you're at in your progress. Above all, don't hesitate to reach out to me should you have questions today about what we're working on. And I look forward to seeing you during this next round of conferences. All right, have a good one.